Tell us a bit about where you're from and the type of work you guys do. Give us a bit of background.
Yep. So I'm from Toowoomba, which is an hour and a half west of Brisbane. We're part of a family business. I've been in business 30 years. I've been involved for 15. Originally came from sales at Harvey Norman and migrated over 15 years ago to get out of retail. Stepped into a family business. So the father-in-law was the senior director. Mother-in-law was doing accounts. Sister-in-law did accounts. Brother-in-law now is my taxation accountant. Don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And yeah, we turn over about 50, 60 houses a year. We've done full spectrum, so we started out as project builders, just doing square boxes, trying to get through 100 of those a year, and we were just putting out wildfires everywhere. It was chaos. And moved all the way through into full custom, so we were doing upwards of over $1 million houses. We found that was too pressurable on our trades and our team members. So then we turned around and got into multi-residential. We had a big boom in Toowoomba. Council reduced some infrastructure fees, so we jumped straight in and started doing units. So we did 14 developments all in 1 year and then head contracted 2 large ones. And then I had staff quit, I had supervisors quit, it was chaos again. So I sort of, I think I checked out one of your seminars 2017 maybe, looking for some guidance probably. And took a little while, took some of the structure and stuff that you already had that I'd learned, took that back to our office. Things like team, our team was wrong. We had employees bagging us behind our backs and stuff like that. So got through all of that, got rid of some staff, and some of the measures that we'd sort of discussed at your seminar, we sort of started to put into place. And I said, at some point, I've got to jump on board here. Started to jump on board, and then from there, it's gone, upwards from there.
Fantastic. How have you found the last couple of years with the pandemic?
Yeah, so obviously being large volume, we looked for master builders, HIA, for some form of guidance, as in, can we operate, can we not operate, how are we going to do this? We had a meeting pretty much when COVID came out with a lot of our contractors to basically say, look, we've been around a long time, we've done the GFC, we've done the GST, now we're going to hit COVID. If we look at the scale of our business, which is nearly 30 years, it's a blip in the radar. We've got to stick together. If we don't, and you guys come in here and start jamming rates up, the moment you bend me over, I'm going to bend you back over when it gets a little bit easier, excuse the pun. And I thought, at some point, we've got to look after each other. The majority of them came on board, some of them didn't, so we let them go. Okay. We got some other guys in that were fantastic. So we've got a bit of youth and a bit of experience. Like Tash was saying, we've had, painters. I've got a painter that's got 3 fingers missing. He's been with us 19 years and he hands down beats most of the new guys. So we're now working on some of the things in our business, creating checklists and, standards and requirements. So when the new guys come on board, you say, it's good wages, but you must do this as part of coming on board with us. So
fantastic. So you've been doing a lot of work and training, obviously demonstrating good leadership through during the last couple of years.
Yep.
Recently I asked you what your biggest learning was for 2022, and you said sometimes you need to experience things to get the learning. So what did you mean by that exactly? As in,
I think sometimes the only way to get experience is to throw yourself in there, and you have to learn. You basically learn from your experiences. So, I think it's the tough years that make most of us builders better, more refined, more intuitive on our systems, understand our team and what we can put ourselves through. As I said, we went to the full end of the scale with the unit projects and lost staff and went, yes, we made some good money, but the overheads were a hell of a lot higher. Was it worth it all in the end? Probably not. So working with you, looking at our blue chip style, we found exactly what we could do, what would be beneficial, what my team could handle, what the trades that work with us and contract to us would handle, that they're happy with. And then refine that right down so everyone's, enjoying their job.
No, fantastic. You did spend a lot of time looking at your blue chip jobs, right? Like looking at margins, doing like an analysis after jobs, looking for the margin first, then chasing the revenue. So tell us about your pursuit of those blue chip jobs, and also what sort of marketing processes you have in place, both online and offline at the moment.
As far as finding the jobs first, we look back through years of documentation of houses where we made profit, where we lost profit, what type of clientele was easier to build for. And for us, it wasn't necessarily the first homeowner, it was the second, third and fourth. We looked at, for us, the best percentage of margin was being a 350,000 house to a 600,000 house based on volume. Those clients were a little bit more experienced, a little bit better funded. They were easier to manage, providing you had them on the right system. And then from there, it was about going, all right, so how do we advertise for that type of clientele? We used to work on some of the basic Facebook posts. You know, I'd drive around, try and take some videos. And then quite early, we got involved with BizVideo. And the aim for me was to do 3 case studies. We worked on a $250,000 to a $300,000 product, a $350,000 to $400,000, and then a $550,000 to $600,000 category. We did 3 case studies on 3 different types of clients. So first one was more of a first homeowner, nearly into second. The middle type of client was from Pakistan. He was Indian. So that showed a bit of cultural diversity. We were able to adapt to his style. They build their houses a certain way with their type of culture. And then the third guy was a South African guy that had built with us twice. So his story was always all about, you know, I trusted them with my first home. My kids are now older. I've got more money. I can still go back to that same place, that same builder, and get a good result. So we did those 3 case studies, and then we obviously, you know, did what the boys told us to do by putting it into, you know, email signatures and those sorts of things, and putting that out. And then, you know, we use that for advertising fairly heavily. And the main thing, obviously, on top of those jobs was to do the business overview. You know, when you're multi-generational, there's a lot of challenges. People want to know that someone that's stepping out and someone that's stepping in, is the business still the same? What's it capable of? Is there a new direction? If there is, what is it? You know, and we obviously needed to portray that in video, so BizVideo did that very well for us. So
you can see how important that is with if you're dealing with immigrants, right? They don't have a lot of contacts, so the trust factor is huge.
But if they watch a video of their culture being built for, they go, this guy gets it. You know, and we had, so the way he explained it to us is when the men come over, we all sit in the lounge room on the floor, and the women and children go up the back of the house and they cook. So the front room, I know it sounds strange, but that's what they do. So we made sure that the toilet was close to where the women and children were cooking, and so was the bathroom. The kitchen was huge, so they could fit 40 women in there if they wanted to. And the main lounge room had real plush carpet, nice things, a nice entry, some family photos. You know, so it was only simple things like that you know, made the difference for them.
Beautiful. Relevance, man.
Yeah, simple,
relevance is the key word in marketing, right? Tell us about holding deposits. You've used holding deposits when you guys got booked out, and also passing leads on, like the overflow. And you had a story about some young bloke coming up to you in the gym. Thanking you.
So I think once you found your blue chip work, we sort of went, well, we're not going to target this and we're not going to target that. Obviously in marketing, people go, we love you. We've got $1 million, will you build our house? And you sort of hate saying, well, no, I don't want to build your house. However, I do have a guy that I know that is very good, trustworthy, has similar systems that would be great for you. Here's where you go. The hold system basically was a commitment or a pre-commitment from our clients to say, we want to be on your list. When you get to us, would you let us know? So what we would do is we would take that deposit. We would put them in the list. We would remind them every month of where they were up to. They would often ring and say, hey, look, you know, unfortunately, we've decided we're not going to build. Some would say, yep, we love it. Where are we up to? We would get to a point sometimes also where we'd say, you know what, we think you've been waiting too long. It's not fair anymore, but I do have a guy that can build a house for you. We've discussed some costings. I'm going to pass over your deposit if you're happy to talk to him. And they would go, look, if you can't help us, then we'd appreciate that. And then all of a sudden they had a good experience. So, you know, all of a sudden you actually have people that you can network with that are then feeding work back to you, going, hey, I have a client who you may be interested in. Can I send them your way? So
you're actually collaborating with the builders in your area.
Which is funny because
competitors. So it's good for you, good for your clients.
We've all got something different to offer. Yeah, for sure.
And would you, the holding deposit was like
commitment.
Was there a specific time commitment though? Were you saying, look, we'll get back to you within 3 months, 6 months, or we'll just
it was more about saying, look, we've got a lot of people coming in at the moment. There's an opportunity for you to be involved in us if you really like us. We'll take a holding deposit and we'll take it from there. They'd say, you know, is it a 12-month process? Well, it could be, but we don't know. We've got to reassess our business and our size and try and work out what we're capable of. But rather than risk it and have 1,000 people that have just paid huge deposits and go, I can't help any of these people and have to give all that money back out of our business, it was safer to take $500 and either shunt it to another guy or to give it back to a client.
Okay. So you second generation, same as Natasha. So what was that like? What was the changeover like? Because there's obviously family involved, which doesn't make it easy. There's the laser complexity. But by the way, second generation businesses, if you do get your business you pass the baton, there's almost no competition, right? Versus a first generation business. How smooth was the changeover, and what changes have you made since taking the reins?
I think the thing is that there's 2 different methodologies to running a business. There obviously is old school and new school. Technology's taken us you know, in leaps and bounds. And if you're not up with that, all of a sudden you can get caught behind. So my father-in-law didn't have Facebook, didn't have Instagram. You know, everything was on the yellow pages, those sorts of things. So when you come to seminars and you're talking to people that are using construction software and stuff like that, I went to your seminar 2 years ago when we were in Brisbane, and I sat down with these guys and they said, how many houses do you do? And I said, I don't know, 60 or 70. And they're like, what software do you use? And I'm like, Word and Excel. They're like, no, you don't. No, surely you don't. And I'm like, no, we're building 60 or 70 houses with Word and Excel. And they're like, really? I'm like, imagine what if you had software, how good you would be. And I'm like, I never thought of that. I should put software in. So all of a sudden we put the software in, so all of a sudden we have so much more free time.
What are you using?
So we use Dex brings the invoicing in, shunt that over to Xero. We take the cost straight out of Dex and then import that back into Buildertrend, and then we monitor the cost of every job on there. So we do clients' invoices still out of Xero, but we mark it into Buildertrend so they can see their costs and their tallies and their variations. They sign their variations on Buildertrend. They get videos and photos on Buildertrend. They get an update every Tuesday on Buildertrend to tell them where their job's up to, which tends to hold them back. So I find we're using the best parts of each piece of the software to its advantage, rather than just going, that's what we were going to stick with and that's all we're
Purchase orders as well?
No, purchase orders are still done manually, which sounds strange.
Yeah.
But the purchase orders that we send, because we have rates with our contractors, and it's based on the same type of house. So the invoices are the same every time. So we don't necessarily send a purchase order as in this is what it should cost. Can you confirm this when you send a bill? We just know what that bill's going to be. So the purchase order that goes out typically is just to say, hey, you got the job. It's a supplier agreement, OH&S plans, and this is what you have to do when you turn up.
Okay, cool. What about site diary? Was the site diary where you're getting the guys to knock off 20 minutes or half an hour early, update what they did in the job with photos and video?
Yep.
And then that was saving you driving out to 7 sites?
It was, but we often also have a lot of clients that don't live where we are. They've heard of us via reputation, or they built with us before. We built a $2.5 million unit complex for a dentist in Brisbane. He was at site twice. Okay. So we were doing that manually before we had Buildertrend. So now that we've got Buildertrend, again, supervisors go down, go, I've got a concern here, video it, I can see it. We have 2 different folders. So we have a trade folder and we have a client folder. So the client can access theirs and we access the trade one. So it gives me an opportunity to see where jobs are up to, things like weather issues, trade issues. So they don't necessarily have to address that. The office can address that, but we've obviously got to see it. We've got reference of it, which means when you hand a house over in 5 years and you're trying to go, what the hell happened here? You can go back into those photos and videos and find all that information.
What's the main benefit then with Buildertrend? Because you'd remember quite clearly Excel and Word, and now onto Buildertrend and Dex. What would be the main sort of benefit?
I find it more accurate for cost tracking, which for me is really important, especially with what's going on with cost rises and things like that. Yeah. But more than anything else, rather than have clients ringing you saying what's going on, they just log in. And they can see it all. They can see the weather. They can see photos. They know that you're involved. They can see their costings. They can see any variations they've signed.
So less conversations. Has it meant less conversations?
Yeah. As in if we've got 40 jobs on the go at once, I'd probably get about 10 phone calls a week. Okay. And that's it. Yeah. And they're people just asking questions about things, especially towards handover. They're asking a few more questions.
And old school days, how many?
Well, it was wildfires. It was just consistently people, and they would rock up. They would just rock up to your front door and go, "What's happening on my site today?" And you go, "I have no idea because I haven't been out there." Whereas now I can actually bring it up quickly, have a pre-meet, talk to them. So going back to your question in relation to the father-in-law, it was more about taking the business to another level. I'm very systematic. Work for Harvey Norman, understand the concept of things like McDonald's and places like that, where if you have a good system, all of a sudden you can create some efficiencies. It doesn't mean you'll never have problems. Obviously, you'll always have problems, but it means you're putting out tiny little spot fires rather than chasing the wildfires.
So you had franchise experience before. Yeah. Fantastic. So you've got an interesting story about humble beginnings. You've been through some personal hardship, as everyone does, but you've been through, I think, significant. But you've used it to shape like strong leadership and to build resilience and a really strong mindset. Can you tell us a bit about that and what you've learned through that?
Yeah. So parents divorced at 10, had anxiety as a child till 16. Then I lost my uncle to a melanoma, lost my auntie to breast cancer, lost another auntie to non-Hodgkin, to motor neurone. Stepfather then ended up with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma for 8 years. And 3 months, sorry, I get emotional, 3 months after he passed away, my wife caught non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. So I went through that for 2 years. Meanwhile, the whole time, I think more than anything, learning from your experiences is about building that resilience. So from my side, it's like I couldn't have got any further stressed than what I was. So I basically looked at that and went, whatever business ventures I'm going to take on, I've got nothing to worry about. Loss of money is nothing compared to the loss of families and friends and other bits and pieces like that. So I sort of turned around after that and went chasing dreams rather than sitting there. If I looked at the people that passed away and what they left, they missed out on plenty of opportunities to do things.
Yeah.
So I sort of made a decision from there, not only in my business, but I would create other businesses. So create ways to give back to the clients, give back to my staff. Like Tash said, with her employees, they're our bread and butter. That's what we live for. So. I've had one of them, his wife's got issues with brain, her brain. One of my other guys, his wife's now going through cancer treatment. Strange. The lady that works for me in my sales, she has no husband, no children, loves a cat. The cat's now got leukemia. So, she's like, I need 2 weeks off work. And I'm like, you know what, just if you need it, take it. Like we love, as a group, you would do the same thing for family. So I think all of those experiences tend to shape you back into who you are. And then from there, if that doesn't break you, then, it'll just keep making you stronger.
I love how you framed that, as in, the people that are gone, their lives, that it's not there anymore. So you want to live yours.
Yeah. I mean, if you fail, you start $1 million business and it fails, start again.
Yeah.
And that's only money.
I love it, man. Great attitude. Just shifting across to sales, because you've had like phenomenal results with your sales process, right? So back in end of 2020, you had 100 inquiries in 4 months, right? I captured this from my coaching notes, right? 100 inquiries, 4 months. You picked up 30 contracts off the 100 inquiries, and those 30 contracts came off 35 quotes. 35 quotes, 30 quotes. So 100 inquiries, 35 quotes. 30 contracts, and 35 site visits. Yeah, so from 100 inquiries, 35 site visits, 30 quotes, and then 30 contracts, right? So 100% conversion rate from quote to contract. So tell us a bit about that. Moving forward to March 21, you had converted 60 quotes into 60 contracts. And you said no, this is important, said no to 200.
So when
that's phenomenal. So that is just like, that blew me away, because your conversion rate's close to 100%.
Yep.
What has been lately, it was close to that then.
It is, yep.
And then you're just saying no to like literally hundreds of people.
So when that government grant came out, people come out of the woodwork and they're like, we want to build. And I'm like, well, that's fantastic. But we'd already had that system in place. We were already quite busy. And I'm like, I can't take all of you. And they just keep ringing. And I'm going, sorry. And my PA is going, you can't just keep saying no to everyone. I'm like, I hate to tell you, we frickin' are. Yeah. And I can't do this. I know what our business capabilities are. Yeah. So we really can't do more than 60 or 70 in the year. So what we're going to do is we're going to filter them out, itemise them down, then we're going to meet them out on site. And if they're right and they're willing to pay for their quote, it's not delivered that way, but that's basically the ultimate goal, then they're going to commit to us, we'll commit to them. So we went through, so all of those 60 were 2 years ago. We obviously went through those. Yeah. So they all met their grant conditions, they all got their homes, they were handed over on time, and I was paid in full.
Wow. So your selection criteria, you got obviously very clear selection criteria, and also deal breaker criteria. You can see if someone's not a good fit and you politely pass them on in seconds, right? So you don't go and drive out and see people and then realise, oh no, wrong fit. Yeah.
No. And I think the thing is that if you don't have a system, no one knows what to follow.
Yeah.
You've got to have structure. So I've talked to a few of the guys here already and said, we don't have seats in our display home. They walk in, they go to pull something out and sit down and design a house, and you go, sorry, we don't want to design your house yet. You're welcome to have a look through the display, look at the plans on the wall. Then when you're ready, complete a form and we'll talk to you.
Yeah.
They're like, hang on, I've just done this 6 times today, and you don't want to talk to me. So it's not that. We just want to make sure you're right for us and we're right for you. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay. And they get that, oh my God, this is just a bit different. I'm not sure about this.
Yeah.
But then when they complete the form and you ring them with all this information that a salesperson would have taken 3 hours to get out of somebody, you can tell that they've committed because they've completed the form.
Yeah.
And then from there, I'll ring them and I'll say, rightio, let's talk, Becky. I know how much my houses cost. I know where you are. I know what sort of things you're going to require.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at your budget and it's not good enough.
Yeah.
How much do you reckon it's going to be? And I'm like, well, looking at everything plus what you're telling me you need, I reckon you need to come up 100. Well, all right, okay. If we could do that, would you meet us out on site? That's the end of the conversation. It's like they've got it, they just haven't told you.
So that's sensational. That's before you go meet them on site.
Yep.
But that wasn't always the case, right?
No.
That conversation would happen deep
Of course
down
it
the
would.
track.
And my salespeople, it's taken me 2 years to convert them because they just don't get it. They're like, oh, but you stand there, I'll draw you a plan. I'm like, you're doing the damage. Don't draw the plan. You're doing the damage. You have to wait until we know, because otherwise, so in the old days, we would draw 7 or 8 plans, modified versions. We'd give them a quote, be 150 over budget. They'd go, no, too dear.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me? You just walked away from that.
Yeah.
So now we go, no, let's do it how we want to do it, and they will follow this process or they don't get in. And when you show those videos that BizVideo do, and you show happy clients and people that are paid to date and they're telling their friends how good you are, they just walk up and go, whatever your process is, we've just got to do it.
Your credibility is earned. So you've earned credibility. You're not trying to sell yourself to them.
No.
In fact, what you just heard there,
Other
guys.
people sell you.
Yeah. Well, because you don't need to sell yourself or your credibility is established. You're using what's called application-based selling.
Yeah.
So they are playing for
they
you
are.
to do their
They do,
job.
yeah.
And
They don't get it
that's
at
why
the start.
it's like getting sconed in the face with a basketball for them. They're like, well, this is what we've just been to other display homes, and they're bending over backwards trying to win our business, and you're not doing that.
Yeah.
But that's also very attractive.
But the good thing is, when I'm talking to them initially about costs, it's not necessarily this is what a house costs. It's if I look at my cost of my sale now, if I say, right, for a 250 square metre home, it costs $320,000. And I want to make $60,000 on that house. And I look at their budget, I'll take their budget, work out what square meterage rate I should be selling a house for, divide it down and then tell them that's what they can have.
Yeah.
So we're basically saying your budget's 400, I can offer you a 240 square metre house finished. And they'll either say then, yes, that's acceptable, or no, it's not. If they say it's acceptable, providing we go out on site, we design it, we do that, we get it within budget, they just go, I'll have it. That's the end of the conversation. Not, oh, we've got 6 other people tendering on this. Well, you can't.
Yeah.
Because it's a different process.
I love it. Great process. The end of 21 financial year, gross margin was up 50% on previous years. What do you attribute that to?
Understanding my business better. When we first started, father-in-law basically said, look, if we turn over 75 houses, we make money.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's fantastic, but what if we don't?
Yeah.
He's like, well, we get rid of the staff. And I'm like, well, but what happens then when it gets busy again? You've got to find them all again and you've lost all this experience. I said, why don't we break down every house, know exactly what every house costs and what we need to run the type of people that we want to have employed. Yeah. So we worked out that our overheads work out to roughly 10% of the contract price. We applied that to our jobs, and then we, on top of that, made the margin that we want. So when we're having that conversation with people, we're going, this is the margin we want. So we're going to tell them before we meet them on site that this is what a house roughly is going to, or what type of house we can give them for that budget. Yeah. And if they're on the same page, everyone's happy. We get what we want, they get a house, they get the inclusions, I do what I say I'm going to do. And the difference is as well, is that I don't sweat the small stuff. If they want to change a clothesline, it's another $40. I'll just give it to them. I'm not going to sit there and argue over $40, do a variation, all the paperwork, update all the selection book, that's just too hard. If it's $5 grand, 10 grand, it's worth the conversation. But if it's small stuff, by the time you do that, they sort of, at the end you go, that was just a great experience. We got a couple of things, we felt like we won a bit, you did exactly what you said you were going to do, your team was amazing, they paid their bill because they were happy with all their costings. Yeah. And the thing is, if you build a whole house and they got 40 grand's worth of variations and you give them the keys and they don't give you the 40 grand and that's your profit, you've got all the profit on all those houses sitting there waiting to be paid. Yeah, no. So we do our accounts 2 to 3 weeks before handover. So this is a guide to what your final account will look like. It's just a statement. They do a bit of a tick and flick, and I would say probably out of 10, I might have one that inquires about something that's not right, or can I check an invoice or something. Yeah.
Just great communication.
Yeah, up front.
We spoke about Builder Trend Zero or Dext. August last year, I asked you an interesting question. I said, well, what could you be the best in the world at? Corne mentioned you love wine, and you responded by saying building world-class wine cellars. Yep. And since then, you've completed an advanced champagne course. Tell us more about that.
And a WSET course, which is Wine Spirits Education. I think the thing is that in our own businesses, there are my type of personalities where you always feel that there's so much more you could be doing. And the problem is if you apply that to your own business all the time, what happens is you confuse your staff and your original clarity or focus that BizVideo are trying to teach you, you end up just skew-whiffing because you're trying to do too much stuff.
Yeah.
So I sort of looked at it and went, I think the system is as good as I'm going to get it without being ridiculous. I need to find another passion. Otherwise, I'm going to drive my staff insane.
Yeah.
So I went off and I went, all right, well, let's try and give back. So we went through, the construction life side of things, which is another topic. And then basically worked through, all right, what am I inspired by? What do I like? I like complexity, I like construction, I like travel, I like food, I like wine. How can I combine all of that into something that I'd really enjoy one day? And went, right, well, that's one way of combining it all. But you can't obviously help people with wine unless you know more about it. So started to go down that course, and my wife's going, oh my God, you're an idiot. You're going to be that wine dick at the bloody table that's trying to tell everybody. And last night I was going, oh, what sort of wine should I drink? And I'm like, I don't know. There's too many options. So we sort of, had to try and rein that back a little bit, I suppose, in my personality. But from my side, it gives me something else separate from work, takes my mind off things, allows me to process things, allows me to do something that I'm passionate about, and obviously one day turn it into a job again.
So you're full of ideas, lots of different passions. That's obviously one of them. Construction life's another. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so you sort of, a couple of years ago led me towards, what are you going to do to give back? Apple have, their way of donating back to recycling and stuff, and Tesla, and, at some point you've got to sort of find a way to be able to contribute. And what I wanted to do is, I know from my experience after dealing, I think we've done 2,600 and something houses now, that we're telling the same clients the same things every time. How can we get across to the client that they should be paying for quotes, that they should sign a preliminary agreement with their builder of choice, that they should spend their time looking for a builder that's specific to what they want to build, rather than just, an everyday builder. So if it's on the side of a hill, you don't choose a traditional builder. There should be a guy specific to that type of work. What do you do when you purchase land? Are there some costs that you haven't considered? Where should I seek legal advice, and where should I just trust my builder? Those sorts of things. So we basically went through and created a website that gives people a couple of free downloads, which is selecting the right land, selecting a builder, project or custom, and then working with a designer, and the difference between a draftsperson, architect, and in-house, design and construct. And we put together a video course, which is a 14 subject over 21 days, and they basically sit there and we just tell them exactly what they should and shouldn't be doing. And what I wanted to do is, from my experience, when I looked at it, I had 33,000 hours of construction experience that I could give to somebody, and hopefully allow other builders to have clients that were prepped and ready for them. So the guy that's on the tools, that's putting houses up, that someone says, oh, I want a quote, he's going, how the hell am I going to sell them something? I barely have time to go home and spend dinner with my wife, and I'm meant to be selling you a house. I wanted them to be able to say, go and do this course, educate yourself, and this will help me later be able to deal with you. So the client educates themselves and comes back to that builder and says, rightio, now I know what type of house I should be looking for. You are the right builder for me. I want to sign an agreement with you. I'm happy to pay for a quote, and I want to do some work.
And they understand the prelim process and everything that's involved.
Because they don't get it. Unless you sit there and sell it, which we've had to change in the last couple of years and get that across to people. Most people, if you sell to them, look, if I could give you a quote for free in 20 minutes, or you could pay, which we charge, $1,400 for a quote, and I'll spend probably a minimum of 6 hours. I'll check with councils, I'll check with your soil tester, I'll check with your developer, I'll look over your plans, I'll design your plans according to our conversations. All of those get put together. They sort of go, okay, I'm actually paying for something I'm receiving, not just a document that tells me how much my house is going to be.
So you're packaging it up, but you're explaining it not like one-on-one, face-to-face. There's information that they can review, which qualifies them as well, because
and commits them to you.
Fantastic. So have you, and you've written a book with that as well, right? There's a book and a video course. And
so it's all part of a package. So it comes out in a month. It's all done. We're just tidying up the balances of it now, working out the payment systems and stuff. It's about $400.
Okay, and you're going to make it available to
anybody.
And to builders to use for their clients, right?
To be able to go, look, I'm not going to steal your work. I'm in Toowoomba, I'm Buckfuck, Idaho. So, you're welcome to, educate your client and say, look, onboard yourself. This guy tells you how to do an agreement. He's a builder. He's been doing it for 15 years, has a successful business, but this is basically what a client needs to know before they work with any builder. Doesn't matter if it's a small guy on the tools or even a guy working with an architect. You wouldn't go down the architectural route unless you'd done a little bit of homework to know that an architect was the right person to design your home. If you don't have $3 million, go to a design and construct company.
I love it, because we all know like an educated client's a better behaved client, right?
It is.
Be interesting to see of the people that go in the course, how many finish the course, the ones that finish what caliber client they are afterwards, after
Yep.
they've been educated.
Yeah. So we've got markers on all of that as part of this course, so I can track
can see if they've
percentages,
watched-
how many
yeah.
have done, where they've come from, and that sort of stuff. Because it's like anything, you start, it's like any other company, you know. It may not be perfect to begin with, but we'll just keep refining it. And then builders go, hey, that worked really well. Can I adapt a little bit of that and just use it for my clients? And you know, so well,
Beautiful. Watch the space, guys. 'Cause I'll be pushing that, shoving it down people's throats.
Okay, good.
Really important. What else was I going to ask you? So there's that. The end game. What's the end game for you? You obviously, you're not going to. You're not. Don't strike me as someone who's going to retire, right? You're not
No,
going to stop.
I'll drive my wife insane, I think, if I let.
So what's the end game, man? You
I
mentioned
think-
it before, I think.
Yeah, so I think the thing is that obviously the company that I'm with now that you know takes up majority of my time, I would like to have it. I think there are some fantastic builders that have poor systems, as you would know, and I think I'd like to be able to offer the opportunity for them to be involved in our business, whether that be by management or by franchise. I'd like also then that construction life, so consumer education's huge on being able to deliver that back, because that will then make somebody else's life easier, another builder's life easier. And then as part of these joint ventures, you know, have a third of my work probably under development. So after watching Tim Bradshaw, I had a conversation with a guy who rang me a week ago. This is new news for you. So a guy rang me a week ago and basically said to me, he built 2 houses with me. His sister's built 2 houses with me. He rang me up and said, look, I want to know about a development. I said, okay, yep, which one? He said, there's a development at Lovett Street. I said, okay, yep. Didn't say I knew anything about it. And he went through the whole spiel, you know, would you like to give me some costings? Would you be interested? I said, oh, look, I'm extremely busy. I don't know if I'd be able to help you there. And he said, oh, all right. I said, actually, I helped the client that's selling it to you get it through the DA process. So I designed the units. I did all the engineering with the engineer. I did all the council applications with this guy, but he just couldn't afford to do it at the end. And he said, oh, that's fantastic. So he said, you'd be interested? And I said, well, I know all about it. I don't know if I'll be interested. I'll have a think about it. So I went home that night and I said to my wife, these are good guys. I know them really well. I know they're really well financed. But I see an opportunity for us to be involved. And she said, what do you want to do? I said, why don't we do a joint venture? She's like, typical wife, well, I'm not sure. You make me nervous when you come up with all this weird stuff. And I'm like, okay, well, I'll have a think about it and I'll work it out. So I had a meeting with these guys. One of the guys that's on their steering committee, we'd already built 13 projects for previously. So he actually came up to us. And I said, why don't we do a joint venture? I'll build it at cost. You'll get the land. We'll go halves in everything. And then when we sell it, we'll split it in half. Well, that means we got more ability then to go and do other things ourselves. We know the construction side is well managed. We trust your brand. We trust your name. We know that you're capable of doing it. For me, it limits my risk because I have an opportunity then to at least cover my overheads when I build it. And what it does for me, they sat down with me and said, oh, well, actually, we might show you the master plan. And they brought up the master plan. So they've got a Yakana retirement village in Toowoomba, which has got 65 residences. They're all nearly 30 years old, so they're going to demolish them and go through and rebuild them all. So my one little opportunity that I get a development turns into 20 years of construction throughout their retirement village. They've got 17 acres all in one corner of town. They're going to demolish stuff and just build units and townhouses and this retirement village. So I'm like, something small has turned into an opportunity there. And because they're non-for-profit, again, I feel I'm slightly contributing and giving back to another business. So they take it out to the community. So it's another prospect. So
huge.
Sounds cool.
Fantastic, man. No
Throw your hat
doubt.
in the ring.
Hey?
Throw my hat in the ring. Have a crack at something else just to drive my wife nuts.
I love it, man. Man, that's no doubt. Like we had you up here 12 months from now, there's going to be more coming because it just doesn't stop. But mate, thank you so much.
No worries. Thanks.
Cheers.
Thanks.